Hi everyone, welcome to the A to Zen Analytics channel, where I plan to share my knowledge of data analytics and business intelligence through Microsoft Excel and Tableau. I hope you enjoy this video and learn something valuable. If you hit the subscribe button and enable notifications, you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded, which I'll be doing on a weekly basis. Today I want to talk about an Excel feature which many people overlook, and that is the Name Manager. In today's video I'll cover the following topics: what a named range is, what the Name Manager is used for, how to create name ranges, how to use Name Manager, and I'll show you some practical examples of name ranges along the way. So what are name ranges? There are a number of elements in Excel which have names, and with which you should already be familiar: workbooks and worksheets. Depending upon your usage, it is usually valuable to use descriptive names for your files and the worksheets, as it helps you to navigate or locate the required information quickly. So I expect you regularly rename them from the default Book 1 or Sheet 1. Now, workbook and worksheet names are not captured in the Name Manager, as it is used for tracking the names of cell ranges. These cell ranges can take the form of tables, columns in tables, or other ranges as specified by yourself. In fact, they can even be single cells. Excel's native range naming takes the approach of referencing cells by which row number and column letter they appear in. For example, the current cell selected is A1 in the top left of the sheet, and that is next to B1 and above A2. It's logical and makes sense, but can be difficult for humans to read when working out where different formulas refer to. To overcome this, it is advantageous to use name ranges when constructing workbooks. In one of my other videos, Excel Introduction to Tables, I spoke about how name ranges are created when you create a table. I'm going to use the same data from that video and take a more in-depth look at the name ranges within. For those that haven't watched the video, I'll do a quick recap on that table. So I have a small data set which I made up for demonstration purposes. It's in the tabular format which a table requires, but is not officially a table as Excel sees it currently. To convert it into a table, I'll select a cell within it and from the ribbon go to Insert and select Table, as I did in my previous video. We now have my data formatted as a table, and with a cell still selected within that table, a new section has appeared in the ribbon, Table Tools Design. On the left of that is a box where the default table name is shown, and I will rename it to Simple Data Table. Renaming your table is a good habit to get into, especially if you have a workbook with a large number of tables. Table names can't have spaces in them, so it is a common workaround to use underscores instead, as they do not affect the readability. Excel has also named the columns in my table using the titles in the column. If you have duplicate column names in your original data, it will number the replicated names. For this reason, you may want to ensure your columns are suitably named. For example, sales could be dollar value or number of sales. So rather than have two columns, sales 1 and sales 2, you should update their names to be more appropriate. So what is Name Manager? As its name implies, Name Manager is a central place for creating, editing, and managing named ranges, named constants, and named formulas. I will touch on named constants and named formulas a bit later, but I will be using name ranges as examples for the time being. I won't go into the details of the column naming here, as I already covered that in my video, Excel Intro to Tables. If we go to Formulas in the Data ribbon and select Name Manager, a box will open that contains all the table names and ranges that have been defined. Unfortunately, the table column names are not shown in the Name Manager, but I will show you how to add them in later. In the Name Manager, we can see that the table which we have created is shown with the name I just gave it. Also shown are the values contained in the range, the location of the range, and the scope to which it applies, and any comments. If we click Edit, we can update the comments with a brief description or other commentary. Within the name manager, I can create new name ranges by selecting new. The default range is whatever you had selected when opening the name manager, so you may need to change this, which you can type manually in this box or by clicking the icon to the right and selecting the area using the mouse. In this case, I'm going to create a range called total profit. This will relate to the cell where I'm going to add a formula to total the profit. Although I already have that option in the total row, I'm going to add it externally, as often you may have these cells display elsewhere. I already have a column containing the profit, so I could just create a cell which is a total of that column by adding equals sum simple data table square bracket profit. Alternatively, if you have a total row and the profit calculated, we can just point to that cell directly. Equals simple data totals profit. In both cases, if the table changes over time by adding more rows or columns, both methods will also reflect those changes. We can also use a name range within our table for calculations. Imagine I want to know how much tax will be payable by the business. I will simplify this somewhat, as tax is more complicated in real life. I'm going to add text to a cell, tax rate, and in the adjacent cell add the value 20%. In this example, the business pays 20% tax on any profit made. With that cell selected, I will select the name manager and new. Excel has created a name for my range by default, which is tax_rate, which would have been the name I created as it does not conflict with any other names. I will update the comment and note that the cell that it refers to is the correct one. When looking at the cell which it refers to, you may notice the dollar symbols in the location reference, which ordinarily means it is a fixed location. However, if we add rows, columns, or drag the reference cells to another location, the name manager will show an updated location. Okay, so now I have my tax rate, I'm going to add another column to the table. Tax payable. The calculation for this will be the profit multiplied by the tax rate. I begin with equals, square bracket, at, and the different table columns appear. I will select profit, close bracket, and asterisk for the multiplication symbol. Then if I type tax, you will see that the name range tax rate is shown as an option, which is what I require. If I press tab, and the formula fills down automatically, and I can now calculate the total tax payable. That seems like a lot of thinking and a lot of work, but if these were forecasted numbers and you wanted to calculate the results for a number of different tax rates, then changing the tax rate value in that cell will result in a recalculation of that result, rather than having to amend any formulas. If the tax rate was announced to be changing to 18%, we can update that value to 18 and see what the total tax payable will be without having to manually update each related formula. This is a simple model for demonstrating, but you could expand the idea out further by varying sales price, unit costs, profit margins, sales growth, or whatever metrics you have, and thus create more complex models which are also flexible. It may be a good idea to draw out your model on paper so you can cover all your different requirements. We can use name ranges to simplify formulas. I already have a name range for tax rate and one for total profit. I can write a calculation for tax payable, which would be equals total profit multiplied by tax rate. And I didn't need to worry about selecting cells, trying to figure out what I was referencing at a later date, or if anything else changes in the sheet. So there are some naming conventions that we need to follow. When it comes to naming your ranges, Excel does place some restrictions on naming. That name must begin with a letter, underscore or backslash. Otherwise, the name can also contain numbers, full stops, and special characters. One character which cannot be used, as already mentioned, is spaces, and these are often replaced with underscores. Another option is to use camel case, where the first letter of conjoined words is capitalized, but that would not be my preference for readability. There is also a limit of 255 characters. You can also create name ranges by selecting the range you want to create and selecting the Define Name button. Excel may create a suitable default name for your range, or you can edit it to be a more suitable name. Similarly, you can change the scope, add a comment, and review the reference range. If I select the tax rate and then select the small triangle next to Define Name, you will see the option to apply names. The Apply Name function comes in handy when you have an existing functional worksheet which already contains all your formulas, and those formulas use the standard cell references. In this example, we have created the name range tax rate, which references cell H17. If we have formulas which also use the same reference H17, we can select all those cells and then use the Apply Name function. All available name ranges will show, and we will select tax rate. This will look for all the selected cells and replace H17 with the name range tax rate. You can select multiple name ranges to be applied in one go. As an example, I can create a tax payable column outside of the table. As you can see, the formula for the cell multiplies the profit row by the cell H17. I'll drag that down to make a column. With that column selected, I'll go to the Apply Names and select Tax Rate. Click OK, and now it will update all the formulas in that column to use the tax rate named range. There are a number of Apply Name options, of which the default should normally be the most appropriate, so I won't expand on them today. If you click on the Use in Formula drop-down, you will show all your name ranges, and you can select them from inclusion in a formula which you have already begun. Alternatively, you can just paste them in to create a cell which shows their value. So how do you create table names into the Name Manager? So previously, when viewing the Name Manager, the column names within the table were not apparent, although I know that the table does contain ranges that I can refer to by name. One way to get around this is to select your entire table and click the Create from Selection button in the ribbon, and it adds column names into your Name Manager. In this case, I just want the top row. Now if I go to the Name Manager, we will see that there are more name ranges available, which cover my column names, as well as the ones I created as examples. Similarly, you can do the same with tabular data, which is not formatted as an Excel table as long as it is set out as a table. There are a number of different options which you can vary in accordance with how your data is laid out. In my video on data validation, I showed how you can refer to ranges based on another selection. In that example, I had a list of product types and restricted the product parts that could be entered based on the product type selected. This used the name range function, so please check that out. I'll put a link in the description. Another neat trick is to create formulas as a name range. This formula can then be referenced in other formulas without having to show the calculated result on the sheet. I could create a formula to average the total profit. I'll select the range and name it through define name. It has automatically selected the range of cells which will default to being a sum of that range. I will amend the formula by adding average in front of the calculation and enclosing it in brackets. Now in my sheet, I can work out the average tax payable by multiplying the average profit by tax rate. As you can see, I have calculated the result without having to show the average profit on the sheet. There are other alternatives such as hiding rows or columns that contain helper formulas or calculating formulas in another sheet, but this is not always desirable. You could also write long nested formulas. You may have your own preferences, but I hope this gives you other options to think about, as it may increase your efficiency when working with worksheets. Thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video and learned from it. I'll be grateful if you could hit the like button to give the video a thumbs up, as it really helps spread the word. If you'd like to see more of my videos, please subscribe so you can be notified of when more videos are uploaded. You'll also find more videos if you head over to my channel. If you have any questions, feedback or topics you would like covered, then please leave a comment below and I will respond. I love feedback and learning from others. All the best, Aaron.